So the boot fairs have started up again, which means more cheap PCs, and I've picked up another one, this time setting us back a whopping £2. Once again, this sort of thing comes with a catch. The catch in this case being that the PC doesn't actually work. So let's take a look at the broken thing we've actually bought. So this thing here is the Acer Aspire T671ME7L, which contains a Core 2 Duo E6400, the Nvidia GeForce 7500 LE graphics chip, and 2GB of DDR2 RAM, essentially making it your standard family computer from around a decade ago. These things are fairly common by now and have long since been either neglected and found new homes in either warehouses, or they've just been sent to the scrap heap. Inside, as we can see, just like the last PC I've bought from the boot fair, and every other PC anyone's ever bought from the boot fair, this thing has never had any work done to it, and there's an awful lot of dust and weird sort of substances which we won't go into inside. And one of those weird CPU cooler cones, which hasn't actually stopped all that much dust getting inside the case or the cooler. You can sort of use the clips to get it off, but I just like to use as much brute force as possible when it comes to stuff like this. With that completely off though, we need to get the power supply unit out, which has really paid for the entire value of the PC already, considering it only cost me £2, and that's about $3 for those of you in the US, so you can see where I'm coming from value-wise. Inside, it is an FSP Group 350 watt power supply unit, which will set you back about £7 or $7 online. They are really common, and locally they are everywhere. They have some great efficiency, and as we've seen in previous videos, they can power the likes of a GTX 465, which is a bit power hungry to say the least. It goes without saying though that the motherboard is just a generic Acer one. It supports a few CPUs more than this, but generally no Core 2 quads, which really limits its uses in 2018. It supports most of the 6 series Core 2 Duos though, and even has some heatsinks on the VRMs, which isn't actually for the Core 2 Duos. It's in case you want to downgrade back to a Pentium D, which unfortunately will actually work. Unfortunately, I have a feeling though that this PC doesn't turn on. Well, we know it doesn't turn on, but we need to get the entire thing out and test why it doesn't. So let's test the motherboard and set it up on this little system, and as we can see, it doesn't post or even turn on. So what I'm going to do is give it a bit of a spray down, as it looks like some of the thermal paste has got onto the board, which might be causing some interference, and I've known little things like this to cause issues with PCs like this in the past, and it just tends to happen. So what you could use is isopropyl alcohol, but I don't have any of that, so I've just used cheap aftershave, which I don't really recommend doing, but it works alright and I didn't have anything else to hand, and our board actually booted up after that, so yeah, it was just some dirt on the board, and that's likely why this PC ended up being sold so cheap. Generally this PC was just dirty, and that's the main thing wrong with it. And well, how do you deal with a dirty PC? Well, you treat the valuable parts quite nicely, and their case you just give a nice dollop of soap to and a bucket full of water, which seems to be my go-to on dirty cases nowadays. But as you probably guessed, the reason I want this case nice and clean is that they actually have quite a lot of reuse value. They offer decent build quality and good expandability, and they'll make a decent sleeper build on the channel at some point, and that would probably make it the 4th video I've done featuring this case, as I did unfortunately sell the other case I had. But now I have one in a bit of a better state. But that's enough about cleaning this Acer. Let's get this hunk of junk back together and ready for some benchmarks. did however manage to get an overclock on the GPU, nothing spectacular as otherwise the card crashes, and the memory is limited. So in other words, the card's so locked down that the performance you're going to see is pretty much the exact same as every 10-year-old PC. And in fact, a PC like this will cost you under £10 on eBay, and probably the same as that in dollars or euros, as these things are absolutely everywhere. Find one at the tip or cheap at the boot fair or the flea market. And in terms of day-to-day tasks, web browsing and everything along those lines, you'll be perfectly fine. In fact, Discord and everything like that is flawless on this machine. Some multitasking was possible, but a little bit sluggish, and YouTube was not playable in 1080p, although was possible with the H.264 add-on, however I don't have footage of that to show you. And anyway, let's get on with some proper gaming benchmarks.